baby, please just pick up the phone. I know that you're home, I've been so alone. I've been lost in a room and the door been closed. Yo, I hope that it's no so I don't have to go out in the world that'll judge me. Lovely, trust me, ain't looking for no one to fuck me. Love me, touch me, even though I'm ugly. I'm trying to put you on a pedestal up above me. I look in the mirror.
It's hard to deny the positive effect that cannabis has had on sports in the past and sports today as we know it. Cannabis is a part of sports whether you like it or not.
Often it pays to throw caution away. Man, I'm not gonna say that I'm living my best, cause my head it resides.
And you're getting high in the middle of the afternoon.
Call me back, I got time
weed.
today. We gon' fly away from all these problems. Lost in the moment, I don't feel like stopping. Hey, what I'm trying to say, you never know if you're gonna die today, cause you only live your life on this earth one time. I'ma get what's mine, I'ma find a way. Hey, hey. But hey, what I'm trying to say is call me back, I got time today. We gon' fly away from all these problems. Lost in the moment, I don't feel like stopping. Hey, what I'm trying to say, you never know if you're gon' die today, cause you only live your life on this earth one time. I'ma get what's mine, I'ma find a way.
Like a whole lot of weed.
What is going on, everybody? Top of the morning to you. Welcome to the Wednesday Wake and Bake Sports Takes over here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, presented by Ma Energy. I am your host, Dallas Clark, also known as Indo is my Nindo. And today we got a nice, tight, quick episode for you guys and a lot of big changes coming around at the Huddle Chat Sports Show. So make sure you guys stay tuned and follow the Huddle Chat Sports Show on Facebook and on Twitter. On Facebook, it'll be at the Huddle Chat. On Twitter, it'll be at THC Sports. And over there, you're going to find any updates, any breaking news that you're going to find on my social media page. And like I said, we're going to have some big changes coming, including we're going to be having some special guests coming here soon. I'm going to be doing a lot of new segments here coming up around the corner, as well as we are discussing having more shows throughout the week, taking my 2-hour-long one episode a week and breaking it down to 2, maybe even 3 episodes in the week. So there are a lot of big changes coming to the Huddle Chat Sports Show. We're not just going to be focusing all on one day. We're going to try to bring you things more times throughout the week. So like I said, make sure you stay tuned. Follow me on social media. That's where you can find any quick updates. And I'd like to give a big thank you to everybody that is tuned in live here on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube all simultaneously. And welcome to those who are going to be watching on demand via the replay function on all of those same platforms. We're going to be coming out with clips and all of that good stuff, some new commercials and everything here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. So like I said, make sure you stay tuned. But what's going on today? Like I said, we got a nice, tight, packed episode for episode 35. We're going to be talking mostly football today. I got a lot of news coming down, and we're going to be breaking down the NFL draft. We got 15 days, 2 weeks from tomorrow. The NFL draft kicks off, pick 1 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there's a lot of stuff to discuss. Everybody's kind of focusing on those top 3, top 4 picks, those top 10 picks. We're going to kind of focus a little bit deeper in the draft, a little bit later in that first round, and kind of talk about some of the players that aren't getting all that attention, like the Trevor Lawrences and all of that in the NFL draft coming up. Because if you don't know, here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, we do like to plow new ground. I'd like to typically talk about those teams, players, and storylines that don't get nearly as much attention as they should in the national headlines. So like I said, we're going to be doing a little bit deeper of a dive than you have been typically hearing about on your favorite sports show, your First Take, Undisputed, things like that you see throughout the week. But before we get that started, like I said, we are pushing to 420 followers. We are just about 11 followers short of 300, and I'm asking you guys to help me out a huge amount. Help me get to that, that big 420 followers mark. And at that 420 followers mark, we're going to be giving away some of that brand new Huddle Chat Sports Show merchandise. We're going to be coming out with some more hoodies, t-shirts, headbands, all of that. So make sure you guys share this out to your friends. Let your friends know what the THC Sports Show is all about and get them here watching and get that follows up. We're going to, like I said, as soon as we hit that 420 follower mark, I'm doing a huge giveaway, not just 1 or 2 t-shirts. I'm talking about at least 10 people will be winning in the giveaway. So like I said, please help your boy out. Let me get to that 420 followers mark. Speaking of 420, everybody knows 420 is coming next week. Shouts out to everybody that does celebrate 420. I hope you have an absolutely amazing holidays and you're completely safe out there. Hopefully COVID doesn't stand too far in the way like it did last year. Now, before we get talking in on this updated NFL news and the rumors about the NFL draft coming up, of course, we got to get to probably my favorite part of my favorite part of every episode, the word on the tweet. What is the word on the tweet this week? Let's go ahead and check it out. And like I said, make sure you follow me on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, Facebook and Twitter. Send me your favorite sports memes, the funniest sports memes. Don't leave me lacking. And you'll have a chance to get shouted out here on my next episodes on the Huddle Chat Sports Show if you give me a good quality meme. So drop your favorite sports memes, drop your favorite funny sports moments, share it to me at the Huddle Chat Sports Show Facebook or Twitter page. And like I said, I'll be making sure to give you a shout out on the episode that your meme gets featured on. So, like we're talking about the word on the tweet today, there's actually some breaking news that I didn't originally plan on talking about earlier in the day, but it just came across my line this morning, and I had to kind of talk about it. Word on the tweet is saying that Aaron Donald from the Los Angeles Rams, we all know Aaron Donald, the big, muscular, crazy, maniac that is one of the best NFL players in the league and probably one of the top 2-3 defensive linemen in the league. He's actually being charged at the current moment. An attorney in Pittsburgh is filing charges against Aaron Donald for an assault charge on this man. This is a picture, if you have a weak stomach, maybe look away, but it's not really that bad. Dude just got really beat the fuck up, Joanna Jurczyk style. But this man here is actually placing charges on Aaron Donald. This is the result of said assault that Aaron Donald has, is accused of. It's just an accusation at this moment. We're going to see what comes down the line on this, but this is the result of fighting Aaron Donald in the street. And the kind of question that I really want to ask this man right here, what the hell made you wake up in the morning and say, I want to go fist fight Aaron Donald in the street? Because that's what's going to happen when you fight Aaron Donald in the middle of the street. I don't really know any details upon this. Haven't even heard a response from Aaron Donald. Like I said, that just came across my line this morning, that Aaron Donald accusedly beat this man to an obvious pulp. And we're going to see what happens down the line on that, of course, here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. We will be talking about that here a little bit more in depth when we get more news down the line. We don't like to jump on anything until there is some solid news, some solid factual evidence. Speaking about NFL players getting a lot of deep trouble for solid factual evidence, I'm sure that we all know of the rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine, the man who kind of threw everybody under the bus to save his own butt when it came to prison time and things like that. And I saw this one today, and everything kind of makes a little bit more sense to me on why this Deshaun Watson situation is going down. This picture was taken just during Tekashi 6ix9ine's court trial back a couple months ago. Asked the judge when the judge tells him 20 more years in prison, he says, "Have you ever heard of Deshaun Watson?" And that is what seems to have started this whole Deshaun Watson situation. Now, all jokes aside, Eric Holmes Jr. from the Rick T podcast asked me last week, and I actually didn't really talk about it. It kind of slipped my mind until the end of the episode. He asked me my thoughts on the Deshaun Watson situation, and we're going to be talking about that here in a second. But with the Deshaun Watson situation again, it's a very difficult situation to discuss because, like I said, with similar with the Aaron Donald situation, we don't have any factual evidence, anything like that at the moment. It's just accusations. But I do have my own question for Deshaun Watson. And, this is also going to come in its own form of a word on the tweet meme. We're all fairly familiar with that Aaron Rodgers Jeopardy special guest host situation that's going on right now and the funny joke that was made last week. But I also have seen my own version of said joke to the answer that Jeopardy question that Aaron Rodgers asked last week that everybody seems to have already seen. But I have the same question as this man right here. Who needs 40 massage therapists? And that would be the question that the man poses to Aaron Rodgers in response to whatever the Jeopardy question was. And I'm not going to lie to you. Despite the fact that we have no factual evidence about the Deshaun Watson situation, despite that we have no real direction on which way this Deshaun Watson situation is going to be going, I cannot lie to you. When you do the math on the people that have come out and spoke against Deshaun Watson, and you do the math on the people that Deshaun Watson has said that he has been in contact with that haven't come out and accused him, Deshaun Watson is at over 40 massage therapists. And not just 40 massage therapists that he contacted through Instagram. The NFL has all kind of things in their contracts that kind of stipulate that you have to stay away from certain situations that may get you caught up in something like this. I'm almost 100% positive that NFL teams have staff members like massage therapists and masseuses and stuff like that on staff at all times, available to those players almost virtually 24/7. Whether they need stretched, whether they need massaged, whatever that case may be, they tend to typically have those kind of people on hand at all times. So there's no reason for a NFL quarterback of Deshaun Watson's stature to be going to Instagram searching for personal masseuses and things like that. So the situation itself does seem kind of funky. At the end of the day, like I said, with the Aaron Donald situation, we have no factual evidence. It is just accusations at this point. Even to the point that the NFL has not even, the NFL, they be on shit like that quick, fast, and in a hurry. They haven't even barely made any statements about the Deshaun Watson situation. They are at the same time, just like all of us, kind of sitting back, opening their ears and waiting to see what kind of comes down the line. With that Deshaun Watson situation, they don't want to make any, assumptions too fast. They're not even investigating him for putting himself in those situations. So Deshaun Watson at this current moment, I don't see anything affecting Deshaun Watson. I don't see his playing future, has been said by Matthew Shefty, has come out and said this week that Deshaun Watson's playing time on the field is up in the air at the current moment. I think everything for Deshaun Watson's up in the air at the current moment, but I don't really think that we can really take anything that's going on with the Deshaun Watson situation or the Aaron Donald situation until we get some real movement in the legal side of things, or even on the discipline side of things from the NFL. So I wouldn't get too worried about the Deshaun Watson situation. But like I said, I just had to bring those up. With word on the tweet, you got to give us the funny stuff, even sometimes if it's a little bit too soon. Now, as you guys may or may not know, I do live out here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. That's why, I'm a cannabis enthusiast myself. I work in the marijuana industry. I've lived in Colorado my whole life. So I've paid a lot of attention to Colorado sports. I'm not a big Broncos fan. In fact, I'm known as kind of a Bronco hater. But I don't really watch hockey that very much, but everybody loves to watch the home team, the Avalanche. I don't dislike the Denver Nuggets. I've just never been a big fan of the Denver Nuggets. However, I have been enjoying watching the Denver Nuggets play the way that they have been over the last little bit. Unfortunately, Jamal Murray did tear his ACL just the other day against the Golden State Warriors, and it's kind of leaving the Nuggets finals and playoff chances up in the air at the current moment. So we'll see what's going to go on with that. But if you do not know and you don't pay attention to Colorado sports, let me give you a quick visual representation of what Colorado sports look like at this current moment. You're kind of looking at the Denver Nuggets and the Avalanche, holding each other up, having a great time, while the Denver Broncos are struggling to even stay above water and not die. And then, look down there in the basement, the Colorado Rockies. They have been dead for so long, you forgot that they were even at the bottom of the pools. Like I said, if you don't pay attention to Colorado sports, this is a fairly perfect representation of what is going on around sports in Colorado and in Denver. Now, on a little bit more of a serious note, let me put this down for a second. Over here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, as you guys know, that we do not like to talk about politics. We do not like to dwell into politics. We like to focus purely on sports. But what I'm getting ready to talk about, I was hesitant to mention this week in the Huddle Chat Sports Show. I was hesitant to bring it up, and it's something that the world is struggling with yet again, unfortunately, despite the fact of everything that we went through last year, and despite the fact that everything that we're going through this year, and all the things that have been coming out in public, and all the stuff that, the MLB, NFL, NHL, just the different organizations out in the world, not even sports organizations, have been doing to point attention to this matter in the world. But what I'm ready to speak on, like I said, we don't like to focus on politics, but this right here is not political. On Monday, we saw a lot of NBA, NFL or NHL and MLB teams postpone their games, postpone different events that they had going on, specifically teams in Minneapolis, Minnesota, due to the unfortunate, unjust killing of Dante Wright out in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. It was a very unfortunate event that happened this weekend. The country has been struggling with it. The world has been struggling with it yet again, and it's almost like deja vu. It seems like just about a month short of this time last year, we were having the same thing happen with the George Floyd killings. We were having the same thing happen with the Black Lives Matter protest downtown. And it's unfortunate to see that things have not changed in that direction. Like I said, you saw a lot of teams end up canceling their, postponing their games, rescheduling them for the next day. Even to draw attention away from, that there's bigger things than sports in the world. And we've heard these similar statements over and over and over again in the past year. We're not talking about the history of the different sports. We're not talking about the history of America. We're talking about just in the past year, the different statements, the different stand-ups, the different motions and movements made by every organization, different players, different teams. Just everybody has been focusing on this, and it's unfortunate to see that the country has not changed in that aspect. It's something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that a lot of people are very passionate about. And like I said, this is not a political conversation. We don't like to talk about politics here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. We like to focus purely on sports, and this has a lot to do with the sports world because it directly impacted the sports world. On Monday and the following couple of days, you saw a lot of different NBA, NFL, and NHL, MLB teams, players come out and speak and have to react to a ton of different events that happened in the world just over this past weekend, involving young African-American people getting assaulted and unjustly killed by police, and that accumulated and ended up and got capped off with the unjust killing of Daunte Wright in Minnesota. And, rest in peace to Daunte Wright. Nobody deserves anything like that. It's an issue in the world that, like I said, we've really been trying to change a lot, and it's unfortunate to see that just in this past 365. I'm not even talking about the past 20 years, the past 30 years, the past 50 years, just the past 365 days. The shit that we've had to go through, and the things that we've done, and the things that we've seen in this country and had to fight through and go through, that we have not barely made any movement. And like I said, we don't like to talk about politics, but I have to bring attention to this. This is extremely impossible to avoid the conversation on. And if you do not agree with what the NBA and the MLB and the NFL and other organizations are doing, if you do not agree with what the players are doing, if you do not agree with the sentiment that Black Lives Matter and this is a subject that needs to change in the world, I don't want your viewership. I'd rather you not watch the Huddle Chat Sports Show. I do not want that kind of person being associated with my show. Here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, we vehemently believe Black Lives Matter. We speak it through and through in our daily lives, even when we're not inside the show. It's something that, if you know anything about me on a personal level, you know that's something that drives me, and it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And it's unfortunate to see. So again, like I said, rest in peace to Daunte Wright. It is great to see the organizations in the NFL and the MLB still stepping up and making those moves to kind of say that there are things bigger in the world than football, than basketball, than the other sports than the other sports. And it's great to see that as shitty as it is to see that we are still taking those steps back. It's awesome to see how many steps forward that we consistently are taking. Shouts out to the Rick T podcast. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We at the Rick T podcast stand with you. Thank you so much over here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Like I said, this is not a political conversation. It directly impacted the sports world, and I could not avoid bringing this up at the beginning of the episode. And Rick T podcast, didn't you get pepper sprayed for some shit like this? Yes, I did. I was out there at the protest last year. I was out there downtown in Colorado watching it all happen, and I did myself get pepper sprayed. But it's not that we're not going to talk about that kind of stuff. Like I said, this is at the end of the day a sports show, but I did have to bring this up because it's not a political conversation. It's a conversation that has to be had in the world, that is being had in the world, and that is directly impacting the sports world. You're still seeing players not coming to practices. You're still seeing players still wanting to speak out and sit out of games for this aspect. And I fully support those people. And here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, we support every organization, every player, every team that's doing anything to bring attention to this. I mean, and if you're looking at, speaking of the Rick T podcast, Matt Faraci was back on the Rick T podcast a couple weeks back, and he was wearing the MLB One Team, One Dream t-shirt. And it's stuff like this that has sparked these sort of movements in the MLB and the NFL and the NHL. And it's something that you're seeing all over the place. And like I said, it's a shame to see that we have not seen any change, any movement in this direction. But in order to kind of, wrap this all up, I do kind of want to bring you guys just one quick Nike commercial. It's a quick 60-second spot. One of the equality commercials that Nike ran last year, and it speaks volumes. And the message still hasn't changed. The message still stays the same. And over here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, like I said, rest in peace to Daunte Wright. Rest in peace to all of those that have unjustly lost their life. No justice, no peace. And we are continuously going to try to make those changes here in the world. So let me go ahead and run this for you guys. Now, speaking of players that are sitting out of their events, sitting out of their practices, speaking of teams that are sitting out of their practices, the NFL is seeing a really big move going on right now. A lot of different teams, a lot of different players have come out and spoke against the NFL's non-COVID-19 protocols at the current moment. And last year, going into the NFL season, I was extremely against the NFL at this current moment, and even getting closer to the NFL season, because the NFL was the last league to start doing anything involved with COVID. They had the longest amount of time between the starting of the pandemic, with the Super Bowl ending in February and the pandemic virtually starting in America in March, and then the NFL season not starting until August. You were looking at it and saying that the NFL was they almost seemed like they were sitting on their hands and hoping for the best. They were hoping for things to change as far as COVID-19 goes and certain things like that. But it's kind of crazy to see that the NFL at this current moment is still kind of struggling with that issue, being the fact that we are so far away from the NFL season. The fact that the NBA, the fact that the NHL, the fact that the MLB, the fact that MLS, the fact that, everybody outside of the Olympics and the NFL have figured out COVID, and they're able to work through it. And we're not even really seeing, it's still an active issue. It's still it's still, of course, the pandemic is still very real, but the NFL still has the most time to deal with things until the season comes. And it seems like we're looking at the NFL and they may still continuously be sitting on their hands and waiting for shit to change as far as COVID, and kind of just hoping that they can continue as normal without COVID affecting anything. And I don't think that's the right move by the NFL in any way, shape, or form. I think the NFL does need to come out with their COVID protocols. As a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, the NFL released a statement saying that they actually are almost requiring, they're just one step short of requiring every player, staff member, team member, coach from getting a vaccine and from being vaccinated. And they are instilling certain COVID protocols for those who have not been vaccinated at the current moment. So you're seeing with vaccines coming out and stuff like that, the NFL should not be having as much of an issue that it currently is. But as of this morning, we're up to 4 NFL teams that have come out and spoke against doing the voluntary OTA workouts. Now, of course, let me before I start getting into this, these are voluntary workouts at the end of the day. But as we all know, and if you are a big NFL fan like myself, you know that quote unquote voluntary in the NFL means mandatory, because if you don't show up, if you're not available for those, that's you're looked at as a player that is not available to your team by your coaches, by your organization. So that still kind of gives you a negative connotation for not showing the quote unquote voluntary workouts. Even in high school football, anything, we all know voluntary means mandatory. You don't have to show up. They can't make you show up, but everybody's finna show up. It started out with the Denver Broncos, then it was the Seattle Seahawks, then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which was the one that was kind of the most shocking to me. I got a couple statements from the teams. Let me pull them up here for you guys. The first one that I would like to pull up would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The NFL players across our league are a group of professionals who care about our jobs, our community, and our families. We made a commitment to the organization, to Bucs fans, and to each other that we would come back to try to bring another world championship to Tampa Bay. We know that our union worked to negotiate safety protocols, but in light of the ongoing pandemic, we are choosing to take a stand with other players across the league and exercise our right to not participate in the voluntary off-season program. We had a fully virtual off-season last year, and we held each other accountable to do the work it took to win, and we plan to do that again. Now, I have no really issue with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers statement. The only issue that I have with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that, let's not pretend that about a month and a half ago, about 45 days ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were all gathered with the entire city of Tampa Bay on boats, getting drunk, celebrating that Lombardi trophy and in their own right. But COVID 2 months ago was still an issue, and almost a worse issue than it is at the current moment. And COVID didn't stop a goddamn thing when it came to the parade and to the celebrations. But now that we're talking about getting into a new season and getting into practices, we're talking about, oh man, it's a little bit too dangerous to wait. Practice together. We were able to celebrate together. We were able to drink together. And if you look at all these players' social medias, they're all vacationing. They're all partying with no mask on. They're not really taking their own COVID their own COVID protocols very seriously. For them to be sitting back and looking at the NFL and saying the NFL isn't doing anything for us, to make it safer for us to come out and play. Well, I mean, it just almost seems almost backwards to me. I understand it is smart for the NFL and NFL players to want to take as much time as possible and as much of a break as possible, and allow as much time as possible before they all have to come together to decrease the amount of issues that they may have with COVID. So we don't have any issues like we had with the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens last year. But I just do think it's kind of out of pocket for some of these players, especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers players and organization, to sit there and pretend that just a month ago they weren't all sitting together, maskless, celebrating their Super Bowl victory, and now they're sitting here now talking about, well, we would like to exercise our right to not participate because COVID is still an issue. COVID is still a serious problem, which I do completely understand. Like I said, these are voluntary workouts, and at the end of the day, that is their right to not attend those workouts. But I just do think I find it kind of backwards, like I said, especially looking at that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. It does seem kind of backwards. Now, like I said, I don't want to just argue on one side of things. Now, you look at last season with no off season, with a fully virtual, workout plan, mini camp, training camp, things like that. Last year's NFL season went fairly well. Now, you may say with injuries, COVID, certain things like that, a lot of players were per se in the shape or conditioning for COVID, and that's something that they may address a little bit differently this year in that virtual off-season program. However, a lot of records got broken last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So something obviously worked in that virtual offseason, in that virtual preseason working out and all that stuff like that. So like I said, I'm not condemning any of these teams. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you are starting to see more and more teams come out and say and use that right and speak up their right to say that they are not going to be participating in those voluntary workouts. The first team to do so would be the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, the hometown team here over in Colorado. Their statement on behalf of the Denver Broncos players made for the NFL Players Association said, "Playing in the NFL is a dream of our players who work tirelessly year-round to perform America's greatest game. With off-season programs starting in less than a week and without adequate protocols in place in order for us players to return safely, we will be exercising our right to not participate in voluntary off-season workouts. COVID-19 remains a serious threat to our families and to our communities, and it makes no sense for us as players to put ourselves at risk during this dead period. Positivity rates in our city are higher than they were at this time last year, and we know players have been infected at club facilities in recent weeks. Despite having a completely virtual offseason last year, the quality of play across the NFL was better than ever by almost every NFL measure. We hope players across the NFL work with our union as we did to get all the facts so every player can make an informed decision." And like I said, I'm not condemning any of these teams. They are fully taking their right. And like I said, and like they said there, COVID-19 is still an issue. It's still a serious problem all across America, all across the globe. But we do have vaccines coming out. We have come out with protocols, and it's not like if the NFL was going to be coming out with any protocols, they would be much different than last year for a non-vaccinated player. And you already know that NFL players, all-stars, certain things like that, they're kind of a little bit ahead of the list of us average Joes on getting those vaccines. So those vaccines should be readily available to pretty much every NFL player that would want to take the vaccine. Like I said, the NFL came out and made a statement the other day that they are going to be requiring a vaccine from every person that's involved with any organization unless they have a valid reason not to do so, some sort of religion, some sort of allergy, something that's keeping them from getting that. That's a valid reason, as opposed to them just not wanting to get it. And so like you're kind of starting to see that, and it's you're seeing that the NFL is basically going to be giving them an option here in a little bit. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be what it is they're basically going to say, well, if you can either show up to your workouts like vaccinated, or you can be non-vaccinated and hold out for the year. They're going to end up I think the NFL at the end of the day is going to have to give players an option. They're going to, or otherwise players are going to use the options that they have available, which is any option. But as the employer, as the person that is signing the checks, as the person that is paying these people millions of dollars, the NFL needs to put their foot down, set up those protocols, not sit on their hands, and they need to do something about this, about COVID. They need to do something about the non-vaccinated players, so that way the teams can start moving and start shaking and getting things working for this upcoming season. Because I feel like this upcoming season, coming off of COVID with an actual off season and everything like that, there's a lot of there's a lot of hype coming out of this offseason. So I think this is going to be a really big offseason and a very important year for training camp and mini camp and things like that. So I think the NFL would they'd be doing their due diligence to get everything in order and stop sitting on their hands and waiting for the players to make their decisions for them. Now, like I said, that's going to be one of the main things that we're talking about when we're talking about players and organizations holding out. I did want to bring out something that I forgot to talk about in the Word on the Tweet segment this week. We all know Gardner Minshew, man. He's not really the greatest quarterback. He played damn well for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I just love me some Gardner Minshew. You cannot hate this guy. Gardner Minshew just the other day dropped this beautiful picture over on Instagram. And let the world know about his mullet. Let the world know who the Jaguar King, the actual Gardner Minshew himself, Mustache Minshew, who he really is. And it's absolutely great to see. I like I said, I love me some Gardner Minshew, man. He's absolutely amazing. And it's hard to hate a personality of this guy. I am very curious to see what is going to happen with Gardner Minshew, and that's actually something that I would like to ask y'all. Let me know in the comments. Even let me know, like I said, hit me up on social media, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. But let me know, what do you think is going to happen with Gardner Minshew coming up now that the Jaguars are looking like they're most obviously going to draft Trevor Lawrence, and if they don't go Trevor Lawrence, they're going to go with one of these quarterbacks. So what's going to happen to Gardner Minshew? Is he going to stay a backup quarterback? Or is he going to potentially do like what they're hoping with a Jacoby Brissett-style player, what I hoped he would have done, and go somewhere and to potentially compete for the starting job? Do you think Gardner Minshew has the tools in his tool belt to compete for the starting job, or was last year kind of a fluke, bringing him off the bench, and he kind of just had that magic moment? What do you think is going to be really going on with Gardner Minshew? We'll talk about it here a little bit later on in the episode. And so as we're discussing, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we're going to be deep diving into a lot of the NFL draft. I mean, we've all been hearing about those top 5 picks. We all know from the majority, it's looking like it's going to go Trevor Lawrence, Zach Williams, Mac Jones, and then the 4th pick. Honestly, I think that 4th pick from the Atlanta Falcons is going to be the most important pick in that first round of the NFL draft. A lot of things they kind of depend on what is going to happen. A lot of picks depend on what's going to happen at that number 4 spot. If the Atlanta Falcons go where I think they should go, the Atlanta Falcons get a quarterback of the future to put behind Matt Ryan for his last year, maybe 2 years, that he's going to be able to squeeze out and start building that future Atlanta Falcons team, because the Atlanta Falcons I don't think that the Atlanta Falcons this year with Matt Ryan at the helm, honestly, even with anybody at the helm, I don't think that Atlanta Falcons are really in a position to compete for a Super Bowl this year. To compete realistically for a Super Bowl. I just don't. I think they still have a couple of questions to answer on their defense, their offensive line, more than just who is going to be the quarterback. And I do think it would be a good idea for the Atlanta Falcons to kind of build a roster around Matt Ryan and maybe go with that Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers style of play and take a veteran quarterback and just build him with amazing weapons around him. But I also think it'd be very important for the Atlanta Falcons to start thinking towards the future, because realistically, in the division that they're in, with the physical state of most NFL teams at the current moment, especially the playoff caliber teams, I just don't think the Atlanta Falcons are a team that is realistically going to be competing for an NFL championship this year. So I think it'd be in their best interest to start going for the future. But if they don't go for the future, do they go Kyle Pitts? Do they go with Sewell, the lineman? Do they start building on defense? Do they go, J.C. Horn, who's going to be one of the players that we're going to be speaking out here a little bit? Like, the Atlanta Falcons are one of those teams, and I think that's going to be the most important pick in the draft. I think, of course, the San Francisco 49ers can shake a couple of things up, but I think that number 4 pick is going to be the most important pick in the draft. But honestly, it seems like those top 4 picks are all that we've really taken a deep dive in and talked about in most cases. So as always, I'm going to ask you guys, because next week I'm going to be doing, before I go on, the Rick T podcast, and shouts out to Eric Holmes from the Rick T podcast. They are going to be doing a draft extravaganza over on the Rick T podcast. On April 29th, it's going to be a live draft show, and I will be appearing on that live draft show with Eric Holmes and the rest of the Rick T podcast team, as well as a couple of other special guests. I'll be representing the great Indianapolis Colts team, talking about what picks they're going to be making, and kind of see what's going to be going down with that NFL draft. But before I appear on that NFL draft special next week, or in 2 weeks from now, next week on my show, I would be doing a nice deep dive on the NFL draft. I'm even thinking about doing a mock draft here live on the show to kind of give you guys my opinions and my things that are and my thoughts that are going to be happening. But I'd like to know what you want to hear about. What pick, what team, what organization, what moves do you want to hear about in the NFL draft? Like I said, we all know about those top 5 picks. We all already know I'm going to be discussing that 21 pick with the Indianapolis Colts. But you tell me, what pick, what team are you a fan of? What pick are you interested in? What decision are you curious to see is going to be being made in the NFL in the coming weeks in this NFL draft? Outside of those top 5, top 10 picks, what do the Dallas Cowboys do at 10? Do the Patriots trade up? There's a lot of really big questions outside of that top 5, and I would like to know, what do you think? So drop your favorite team, drop the team's pick that you're most interested in, and next week I will shout you out on my episode, and we will be discussing your team and the option that you brought up to me next week on the Huddle Chat Sports Show when we do our deep dive in on the NFL draft. And like I said, shouts out to the Rick T Podcast. We will be appearing on that Rick T Podcast on April 29th, and if you can't get enough of sports talk and you can't get enough of what we say here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, check out the Rick T Podcast. My man, me and him have really good arguments, really good debates, and even when I'm not on the show, Eric Holmes, man, he always brings you some good takes. It's a very entertaining show. You can check it out on Sunday morning, so check out the Rick T Podcast. Really good friend of mine. And again, like I said, I'll be on that draft extravaganza special on April 29th live over on the Rick T Podcast, and I just absolutely cannot wait for it. Now, like I said, I want to be talking about Matthew Ryan Faraci. Shouts out to you. Welcome to this episode of the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Big fan of my man, Matt Faraci. If you haven't seen my man, Matt Faraci's TikToks, we're going to have Matt over here on the show here very soon as we can get a little bit of time. My man's a busy dude, especially now that MLB has started. But if you haven't checked out my man, Matt Faraci's TikTok, please drop the TikTok in the comments for me, Matt Faraci. Y'all really got to see it. If you're interested in baseball, sports, content creation, anything along those lines, my man Matt Faraci has got you covered, and he's got some of the most damn interesting content that you can see, even if you're not a person that's fully interested in baseball or behind the scenes stuff like that. I mean, just his pure content is just so amazing. It's honestly like he's a real lucky guy, and I'm jealous as hell of him. But shouts out Matt Faraci, big fan of him. But he says that he thinks that Gardner Minshew is going to be Trevor Lawrence's backup, and that they're going to drop him next season. Shouts out to the Rick T Podcast. The 29th is going to be nuts. Jets getting Zach Wilson. I think the Jets getting Zach Wilson might honestly be a big mistake for the Jets. I think Zach Wilson may end up being the Mitchell Trubisky of this draft. I don't think outside of his pro day, Zach Wilson didn't do a damn thing to really to really set himself apart from everybody else in the draft. And I think the Jets would be the best off to go with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. And I think that Zach Wilson has a great potential to be this year's Mitch Trubisky, who had a lot of hype coming out of his pro day, a lot of hype coming out of the end of his college season last year. He kind of just out of nowhere seemingly jumped up to that number 2 pick for the Jets. I hope it works out for the Jets, but I think the Jets may make a bad decision by going with Zach Wilson over Justin Fields. And honestly, the Jets, they have multiple first-round picks. I think the Jets also would be smart to make that move that nobody's expecting and have them go with Sewell. Take the best offensive line in the draft. It's a no-brainer. Take Sewell. He's a Quentin Nelson-style player. He will completely change the draft for the New York Jets, and then let the other teams decide on those quarterbacks. Because you've seen in the past, there will be 4, 5, 6 good quarterbacks this year, but there's going to be that one quarterback that's always going to be talked about as why did he get picked early. And this year, I think it's going to be a toss-up between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. I don't even know why Mac Jones, per se, is even a first-round prospect. I don't think Mac Jones is that good. He had amazing weapons around him, and he was in a great offensive scheme. I think outside of the fact that he fits San Francisco's vanilla, boring, robotic offensive scheme led by Kyle Shanahan, I don't think Mac Jones should really be a first-round prospect at all. I think Trey Lance is a better quarterback. I think honestly, Davis Mills from Stanford is going to be a better quarterback at the end of the day. I really just don't see Mac Jones. So like I said, I think it's going to be a toss-up between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson on who's going to be that quarterback that you say, man, look at all these people that got drafted after they picked this guy at 2 or this guy at 3. So I think those are going to be some big moves that are coming on and some hot takes for you guys. Rick T Podcast says he thinks that they traded. He's talking about the Falcons with the 4th pick that I believe. Jets getting Travis Etienne for their 2nd first-round pick. And that's actually an amazing pick. Travis Etienne is going to be getting talked about here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Matt Faraci, how you get in my head, man? I need you to get up out my head. Speaking of Matt Faraci, he said search at Matt Faraci on all social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anything, man. Like I said, you really got to get out there and check out his content. Matt Faraci, I mean, it's one of those things that you can just sit there and watch and just be amazed by the different things that he's done, seen, experienced. I mean, and he even helps you out. Like he's a self-made content creator. So he even gives you some tips for people that like myself and, Eric Holmes at the Rick T podcast that are trying to build their own social media, their own content creation. He even gives you some tips and tricks on that aspect. So like I said, search Matt Faraci on all social media. You definitely will not regret it. Rick T podcast says Sewell, then Ian Book. I do like that as well. I think the Jets should go Sewell and then pick one of those late round. I mean, Trey Lance may fall available to them with their second first round pick. Justin Fields may fuck around and fall down to their second first round pick. We're actually going to be discussing what I think actually may happen with Justin Fields because I think he might fall later than everybody else. But we're going to be talking about that here in a minute. Matt Faraci says, I agree. Sewell should have been the pick if they kept Darnold, but since they traded him, I think Wilson will go to us. That's a very good take. I just think that there are so many good quarterbacks in this NFL draft that the Jets don't need to go with Zach Wilson. He's not that much better than any of the other options per se that they would be able to grab a little bit later in the first round, as opposed to what they could get. Kyle Pitts, Sewell. They have some real serious game changers that they can put around whoever they pick on in that draft, in that late first round pick. And I think the Jets really have a lot of options. As a matter of fact, like I said, we're going to be discussing here. So we've talked about that fourth pick with the Atlanta Falcons. I think 5 and 6, like I said, that fourth pick with the Falcons really determines what's going to happen with that 5 and 6 pick, whether Pitts is available, whether Sewell is available. But we all kind of have been looking at this year. And I think that this year, I have a real big prediction for this year's NFL draft. And I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks, and I've been doing my research. And I seriously, I can see this happening so much that I'd almost be willing to bet on it. I think this year in the NFL draft, we get 2 records broken. They're talking about 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10 picks, especially if the Dallas Cowboys trade back with the New England Patriots, like have been rumored at the current moment. And especially if everybody kind of just stays where they're at, honestly, I don't see an issue, or I don't see a hesitation with 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10 picks. And that would actually be the most quarterbacks, the fastest 5 quarterbacks ever got selected in the common draft era. So I think that's the first record that gets broken. 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 picks. You're looking at those first 3 picks most likely going quarterback. The Falcons should go quarterback. You're looking at a couple of those later picks. And like I said, they're talking about the New England Patriots trading up to get a Trey Lance. You're looking at the Denver Broncos sitting at 9. They really need something big. So I think it's very, very easy to see that the NFL draft may really, especially with how good the quarterbacks are, I don't see a problem with 5 quarterbacks coming off the board in the top 10 picks. Now, the second record that I think is going to be broken, we're going to break the record that was just set in last year's NFL draft. I'm looking at least, and I said at least 14 wide receivers going in the top 2 rounds, and that would break last year's record of 13 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds, because that wide receiver selection this year is absolutely insane. And that's amazing to hear as an Indianapolis Colts fan. Me personally, I do really see the Indianapolis Colts trading back from that 21st pick because we can get so much fire in the second round, and Chris Ballard has proven to be so good at drafting in the second round. You're looking at Darius Leonard, Julian Blackmon, second runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year this last year. You're looking at Jonathan Taylor, Bobby Okereke, Anthony Walker Jr. Just 5 of our second-round picks in the last 3 years have turned into amazing NFL starters. Darius Leonard, the best linebacker in the NFL. We got Quentin Nelson in the first round a couple years back. Best lineman in the NFL. We traded our first-round draft pick last year for DeForest Buckner for the 49ers. The Colts know how to move and shake when it comes to the NFL draft, and it just really falls into our scheme to trade back a couple picks. We have an early second-round pick. I believe we actually have 2 at the current moment. We trade back, maybe get a later pick in the first round, or more depth in the second and third round, build on next year's draft, because that wide receiver selection is so deep. Unless an amazing offensive lineman falls to us at the 21st pick, I don't think the Indianapolis Colts take a first-round pick this year, I think they trade back. And I think a lot of teams end up doing something like that because there is a lot of explosive talent, especially at those skill positions in the NFL draft this year. And if you're a team like the Indianapolis Colts that really only could use the additional one offensive lineman that doesn't really need to revamp their offensive line or their linebacker core or some of those core positions, you're kind of sitting pretty coming in this NFL draft, and you have that chance to build some depth and build some draft capital. But like I said, I do see 14 wide receivers going off the board in the first 2 rounds, and that will be the second record that gets broken. So I think this year we get 2 records broken in Cleveland for the NFL draft this year. I think it's going to be an absolutely insanely entertaining draft coming up this year, to be honest with you. And like I said, don't forget to drop in the comments, drop on my social media, what team do you want to hear about that's going to be coming in to the NFL draft in that first, maybe that early second round that you want to take a deep dive in, that you just really haven't heard much about, that you kind of want to know what you think that team is going to do. So make sure you drop it in the comments, drop it on social media. Let me know what you want to hear about, because I always want to talk about what you want to hear about. Now, speaking of the Denver Broncos, we're going to take a real quick deep dive in on the Denver Broncos. So, congratulations to my Denver Broncos fans. Y'all made it on the show, and it's about time. I need to talk about the Broncos. Coming up later this week, I'm going to be talking about the Colorado Rockies and the Denver Nuggets. We're actually going to be doing a lot of deep diving in on the Colorado sports. Now, and if you did miss word on the tweet, let me just bring y'all this real quick visual representation. If you don't live in Colorado or you don't pay too much attention to Colorado sports, here's just a quick visual representation of what Colorado sports look like at the current moment. You're looking at the Colorado Rockies. They've been dead for centuries at the bottom. So long you forgot they were even down there. The Denver Broncos just struggling to keep their heads above water. And then, of course, the happy Avalanche holding up the star child, which would be the Denver Nuggets of Colorado. They are the star child. They until Jamal Murray tore his ACL the other day, had an amazing chance to potentially represent Colorado in the NBA Finals this year. We're going to have to see how that breaks down. And again, later on this week, we are going to be discussing some of the NBA fates later on. When I do my late week episode, we're going to be discussing some of the NBA playoff fates and what I think the NBA playoffs are going to look like, as well as, do you think LaMelo Ball did enough in the first few months of the year to still win the Rookie of the Year? He only played 41 games, about less than half the season, about 60 or a little more than half the season, because we're having a shorter season this year. Did he do enough in those first 3 months to win that Rookie of the Year award in the NBA? We will be discussing that here a little bit later on this week. So make sure you tune in to my later episode this week. That will be announced on social media a little bit later today. I just got to figure out the schedule for it, to be honest with you. But the Denver Broncos. So some news broke the other day, and it was very shocking. And all I could really do was screenshot it and let you read it yourself. News broke the other day of the Denver Broncos, one of several teams who was interested in Matthew Stafford. They gave the Detroit Lions options for the franchise quarterbacks, and the specifics are pretty damn hilarious, to be honest with you. The Broncos were offering their first-round pick, which was the 9th pick, and nothing else. And if honestly that wasn't disrespectful enough for the Broncos to say, we'll give you a first-round pick only for Matthew Stafford, they also wanted in return a second-round pick. So essentially, they were really just hoping to land Matthew Stafford for a pick swap of just a little over 30 spots, and the Lions would get the 9th overall pick, and the Broncos would get Detroit's second-round pick, which was the 41st pick in the draft. Essentially, the Broncos just move back a few spots, get the starting quarterback they need, and really give nothing to the Lions in return outside of a jump up in that first round, a second first-round pick. And like I said, that's just disrespectfully hilarious. I don't really understand it. I don't understand the thinking behind this. I honestly, this is that kind of shit. If you were playing Madden, you would offer this to a team and they would come back and they would honestly probably never deal with you again. I really don't understand the thought process behind this. Maybe it wasn't a serious offer from the Denver Broncos. Maybe they didn't really want Matthew Stafford and they were just kind of throwing their pole in the water to see what they could get. But I don't really realistically think the Denver Broncos were really expecting that. Now, I think the Denver Broncos, speaking of, have potential to make one of the biggest moves and one of my least favorite moves in the NFL draft, because I would hate to see it happen for Denver Broncos. Because like I said earlier, I'm known as kind of a Bronco hater. And you ask, why am I kind of a Bronco hater? And Rick T Podcast says it perfectly well himself. Bronco fans are the worst. I'm not a Bronco hater. I'm a Bronco fan hater. I live in Colorado, and I've argued with Bronco fans my entire damn life. And sometimes, I mean, I'm sure everybody feels about this. If you live in Indianapolis, I'm sure Colts fans feel to get this way to you. But Broncos fans seems like sometimes some of the most ignorant people. They have some of the dumbest arguments, and you get tired of arguing with Bronco fans when outside of the Super Bowl that Peyton Manning brought to the city of Denver after the 90s, the Denver Broncos really have not been relevant. They've had Jay Cutler, they've had Kyle Orton. I mean, we don't got to disrespect the Broncos. That's not what we're doing here. Okay, we didn't start this to start disrespecting the Broncos. And I apologize, Bronco fans. I said I got you guys on the show for the first time ever. I didn't mean to bring you on here to trash the team. So like I said, I apologize about that. But with the Denver Broncos, I think the Denver Broncos are sitting pretty, and they're sitting in a perfect spot. Justin Fields, the amazing quarterback. I've told you guys, I think Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback in the NFL draft, depending on the team that drafts him, because Trevor Lawrence is going to be going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a rebuild, a team that consistently drafts amazing quarterbacks in the first pick of the draft, and then consistently is still the worst team in the NFL. So you're looking at Trevor Lawrence not going to the best, situation possible. I think Justin Fields has opportunity to be the best quarterback in this draft. And I think the Broncos at number 9 have serious chance to get Justin Fields. So they were talking yesterday about the Dallas Cowboys trading that 10th pick to the New England Patriots. And the New England Patriots slide up to that 10th spot, and the New England Patriots would be doing so to draft Justin Fields. And I think that the Denver Broncos would be completely remiss. They would be absolutely stupid. They would be like Colorado Rockies level stupid if they were to pass on Justin Fields at 9. If Justin Fields is available for the Denver Broncos to draft at 9, which he very, very well may be, Trey Lance may still be available at 9. Justin Fields may still be available at 9. I think the Denver Broncos have an amazing opportunity to draft one of the 2 best, most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL draft this year coming up. And honestly, I had to actually sit back and take a look, because as a Denver Bronco hater, as a Denver Bronco fan hater, I've kind of been telling myself the Denver Broncos are a terrible team. They're a team with too many holes to focus on to seriously have to focus on anything in this NFL draft. But then I sat back and I looked. Noah Fant, before getting hurt last year, was a top 3 tight end. Courtland Sutton has proven himself to be a really good number 1 wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. He just has not gotten the respect that he's deserved because he's had Joe Flacco and Drew Lock throwing him the ball. And Joe Flacco, like 80-year-old Joe Flacco, not Super Bowl Joe Flacco. We're talking 80-year-old Joe Flacco. Like Joe Flacco, who's the backup quarterback for the Jets, I think. Not the Jets. He was the backup for the Jets. Somebody just signed Joe Flacco, and I can't remember who it was, but he's a backup quarterback for somebody at the current moment. But Courtland Sutton, he's been a good quarterback, a good wide receiver, despite the terrible quarterbacks that he's had tossing him the rock. Jerry Jeudy, the rookie sensation last year, he's got some speed, he's got some explosive ability. He can completely take the top off of a defense. And then you're going to be also looking at, like I said, Noah Fant's going to be one of the best tight ends in the league. I mean, if he did not get injured last year, he would have been a top 3 tight end. You're looking at Melvin Gordon, despite the fact that they just got rid of Phillip Lindsay, and I think that's a bunch of bullshit what they did to Phillip Lindsay. But you're looking at Melvin Gordon, still a really good running back. Didn't live up to his hype last year, but I still think that Melvin Gordon has a lot of potential. That Denver Broncos offense especially has a lot of weapons, has a lot of explosive ability, and their defense is still one of the best defenses in the league. It's getting a little older. It's not still the top defense in the league, but it's still one of the best defenses in the league. This Denver Broncos team could be a Justin Fields, a Trey Lance, 1 pick away from seriously competing. Now, I think what the problem that's going to be for the Denver Broncos is this is something that I've been wanting to say for a couple of weeks. I just haven't quite known how to say it. I think it's very obvious, and I would be willing to argue with anybody about it. Shouts out Rick T Podcast says, get me on the THC show. I got some shit to say. We will definitely be having Rick T here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Most likely this week when I do my late week episode, I'll be having my boy Eric Holmes out here because we got to get into it, my boy. But I do think pause for the cause, pause for dramatic effect. I think that Denver Broncos team could seriously be a competitive team, but the thing that's standing in the Denver Broncos way is that the AFC West has become, over the last couple of years, the toughest division in football. There is no harder division in football to play in at the current moment than the AFC West. You're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, everybody knows the Kansas City Chiefs. They become the new Tampa Bay or the new Tom Brady New England Patriots. And then you're looking at 2 years ago, Patrick Mahomes' first year, so that would have been 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago. The San Diego Chargers, at the time were the San Diego Chargers, make the wild card as a 12-4 team, because the Kansas City Chiefs also went 12-4. You're looking at what the Las Vegas Raiders have been able to do in the last couple of years and the weapons that they have on that team with Henry Ruggs, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller. I mean, that's a very ridiculously young, and that's going to be a scary team here in the coming years just because of how young and explosive that Las Vegas Raiders team is. The Los Angeles Chargers, now led by Justin Herbert, they seem to kind of have figured some shit out, and that's a scary team as well. So the problem with the Denver Broncos is right now they're having to fist fight. They're having to fight tooth and nail just to get out of the bottom of the AFC West. The AFC West is the toughest division in football, and it's going to take a lot more than being a good potential team. It's going to take a lot more than being a team with some options. The Denver Broncos are going to have to dominate in order to even stand a chance to be relevant in the AFC West. And that's what's going to be standing in the Broncos' way. But I do think the Denver Broncos would be absolutely dumb to pass on Justin Fields or Trey Lance at pick 9. I think the Denver Broncos are one of those 5 teams that absolutely should and need to go with a quarterback in the top 10 picks. I think it's obvious, and I think that unless all the quarterbacks that the Broncos were looking at, like I said, unless those top 5 quarterbacks get picked before pick 9, the Denver Broncos should absolutely go with the quarterback of the future. I think that it's the obvious move for the Denver Broncos to make, because the Drew Lock experiment is done. It's over. Drew Lock is not going to do a damn thing for the Denver Broncos, and he's not going to keep them relevant as an NFL football team. Now, last couple of things I want to talk about today. Really interesting while we're talking about all these quarterbacks getting drafted, we're talking about Sam Darnold getting traded, Carson Wentz getting traded, Matt Stafford getting traded, Jared Goff getting traded. We have had 14 quarterbacks drafted in the top 5 between 2009 and 2018. Baker Mayfield is the only one who remains on the team that selected him. Out of all 14 quarterbacks that were picked in the top 5 picks in over a decade, Baker Mayfield is the only one who remains on the team that selected him. And let's not forget, Baker Mayfield just got signed a couple of years ago. He just came out of college. So that's a wild ass stat, and it makes you really have to sit back and look at those top 10 picks over history versus those later picks and how overvalued the NFL draft is. And because I think it's just because us NFL fans, we get bored as fuck. We get bored as hell. We sit in our hands waiting for some sort of news. So we try to speculate. We try to come up with a bunch of stuff that we think that we know. And at the end of the day, you can't really – nobody knew Tom Brady was going to be Tom Brady. Nobody knew Dak Prescott was going to be nearly as good as Dak Prescott is. It's hard with the NFL draft. It's all about what your team needs and what is available at that current moment. It's crazy to see that 14 quarterbacks were drafted in the top 5. Top 5 picks. That's not first round, top 5 picks. And Baker Mayfield is the only one who remains on the team that selected it. Now, to wrap up the show today, I do got to give a big shout out. We all know the New England Patriots. We all have hated the New England Patriots, unless you're a New England Patriots fan yourself. So watching this happen the other day, Julian Edelman retired. It's crazy. We watched Larry Fitzgerald speaking about his retirement, and Julian Edelman, the next of our childhood wide receivers that we watched, do a lot. Come in and make an impact. And like we were talking about those late round picks, Julian Edelman came in as a 7th round pick in the NFL, damn near Mr. Irrelevant. And Julian Edelman plays 11 years and as one of the most dominant wide receivers in history. Now, of course, he did play with Tom Brady, and there's all that stuff, but it's sad to see Julian Edelman go. And as you see what he's done here, he was a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was the Super Bowl MVP in 2018. At the end of his career, finished with 620 receptions with over 6,000 receiving yards, 41 touchdowns at the end of it all, and 118 postseason receptions with 1,442 yards, which is second most in the Super Bowl era behind the only Jerry Rice. So shouts out to Julian Edelman. He announced his retirement the other day. The New England Patriots and him did some stuff. They basically said that he failed the physical so that way he could retire without costing the team money. They hooked each other up. But it's really cool to see Julian Edelman kind of going out on top, not struggling with another bad year. He did have a career low year last year. And it's sad to see Julian Edelman go. It's sad to see a lot of these childhood players go. Like we've talked about before, Ben Roethlisberger coming to the end of his career. We watched this last year. We watched Phillip Rivers retire. We watched Drew Brees retire. We've watched a ton of childhood memories retire. So it's going to be crazy to see all of the quarterbacks, wide receivers, big names that we've known leave the NFL as a record-breaking NFL draft comes in to this year. It's going to be crazy to see. Like I said, this 2021 NFL offseason is going to be a really big one, and it's already started off to be the most hype season in the NFL, the most hype offseason I can remember in recent memory in the NFL. So that is actually going to wrap up my talks for today, man. Like I said, we're going to be keeping it down to a shorter episode today. I just wanted to focus on the NFL. Later on in the week, we are going to be discussing the NBA. Like I said, we're going to be predicting some of the NBA playoff fates. We're going to be discussing some of the biggest stories that happened this last week in the MLB. And I really got to take a deep dive in on a lot of these UFC fights that are coming up. Conor McGregor, Poirier just got announced and officialized, and they had a lot of drama on social media last week. You're looking at the triple title fight coming up here next week, not this coming weekend, but next week on the 24th. We got a lot of really big stuff coming down, moving and shaking in the fight world. Even that ridiculous, disrespectful ass Ben Askren, Jake Paul fight. So we got a lot of stuff to discuss about in the fight world, in the ball world, and in the baseball world on the diamond. So make sure you guys all, like always, like I've always said, man, we're trying to get to that 420 followers. So make sure you guys share this out to your friends. Let your friends know. We're almost at 300. As soon as I hit that 420 followers mark, we are going to launch an insanely big giveaway. And again, like I said, thank you guys all that checked it out live today on Twitch, on Facebook, on YouTube. And thank you for everybody that's going to be watching the Huddle Chat Sports Show on demand via replay in the same exact platforms as they were live. This is episode 35 of the Huddle Chat Sports Show. And like I've said, guys, make sure you go ahead, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. There's going to be a lot of big changes coming up, and I always update you guys as soon as I know something. I update you guys on that Facebook, on the Twitter. So make sure you follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. And like I said, I'm gonna put it out to you guys. Drop me your favorite sports memes. I'm gonna be including you guys' favorite sports memes on the Word on the Tweet segment at the beginning of the show. So drop your favorite sports memes, tag me in them, send them to me in the DM, whatever you do for a chance to get shouted out on my show with your hilarious meme. And it got to be a quality meme. You can't be dropping me into that whack stuff. I need quality memes. Word on the Tweet is serious. We're gonna be doing it big. So make sure you contact me on the Huddle Chat Sports Show Facebook, Twitter. Drop me those memes, drop me those opinions. And next week we are going to be doing that deep dive in on the NFL draft. So let me know your NFL team. Let me know what pick you want to hear about. We're not going to be doing too much talking about those top 5 picks, because that's all everybody's been talking about. So let me know in the later picks. Are you a Dolphins fan? You want to know what they're going to do at 6? You a Cowboys fan? Want to know what they're going to do at 10? We're going to talk about the Colts at 21. What pick do you want to hear about? Drop it in the comments. Drop it on my social media. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all the love, for all the support that I've gotten this far, and all the support that I've continued to get. Man, I could not continue to do this without you guys. This has been the Wake and Bake Sports Take on Wednesday with the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Indo is my Nindo. I hope your plants never stop growing and the sports never stop showing. It's your boy, Indo is my Nindo, and I am the fuck out of here. Y'all have a great rest of your day, man. Peace.
Please pick up the phone. I know that you're home, I've been so alone. I've been lost in a room and the door been closed. Yo, I hope that it's no so I don't have to go out in the world that'll judge me. Lovely, trust me, ain't looking for no one to fuck me. Love me, touch me, even though I'm ugly. I'm trying to put you on a pedestal up above me. I look in the mirror.
It's hard to deny the positive effect that cannabis has had on sports in the past and sports today as we know it. Cannabis is a part of sports whether you like it or not.
Often it pays to throw caution away. Man, I'm not gonna say that I'm living my best, cause my head it resides
And
in
you're
the dark
getting
part of space.
high
But,
in the middle of the afternoon
just call me
off
back, I
some
got time
weed.
today. We gon' fly away from all these problems. Lost in the moment, I don't feel like stopping. Hey, what I'm trying to say, you never know if you're gonna die today, cause you only live your life on this earth one time. I'ma get what's mine, I'ma find a way. Hey, hey. But hey, what I'm trying to say is call me back, I got time today. We gon' fly away from all these problems. Lost in the moment, I don't feel like stopping. Hey, what I'm trying to say, you never know if you're gon' die today. Cause you only live your life on this earth one time. I'ma get what's mine, I'ma find a
Smoke a lot
way.
of weed, girl, like a whole lot of weed.